this is the last and final episode of George's Marvelous Medicine where we say goodbye to Grandma. Yes.
Stop! Spoiler people! You get out of the room.
Well, don't we...
And we're gonna have a tiny weeny short quiz at the end of the book
to see if you're paying attention.
So, are you ready? Let's shrink. Goodbye, Grandma.
The last chapter.
Yay!
There's still something you've left out.
Mr. Cranky said. I can't think what it could be, George said.
Give it up.
Mrs. Cranky said.
Pack it in. You'll never get it right.
Mr. Cranky looked very
forlorn.
George looked pretty fed up too. He was still kneeling on the ground with the spoon in one hand and the cup full of medicine in the other. Can't believe Mr. Cranky actually gave up. The ridiculous tiny brown hen was walking slowly away. At that point, Grandma came how do you pronounce this? Striding into the yard. From her enormous height, she glared down at the three people below her and she shouted,
What's going on around here? Why hasn't anyone brought me my morning cup of tea? It's bad enough having to sleep in the yard with the rats and mice, but I'll be blowed if I'm going to starve as well. No tea, no eggs and bacon, no buttered toast.
I'm sorry, Mother.
Mrs. Cranky said.
We've been terribly busy. I'll get you something right away.
Let George go to the lazy brute.
Grandma shouted.
Just then, the old woman spotted the cup in George's hand. She bent down and peered into it. She saw that it was full of brown liquid. Let me get this straight. These are the small people. This is Grandma's head. Her
neck.
Yes, which is averagely long. Her long back, she looks like a humpback. This may look like the thing that makes her look fat, but that's her hand, elbow. She's pointing at George.
This is her hand.
Yeah.
And then here starts her other hand and she's pointing at George.
Hey!
Then here's her skirt and then her legs.
Grandma got tall, right?
Yeah.
You can't consider her tall if her legs didn't get any taller.
Her face looks like a turtle.
Look at the line here that shows that she is a turtle. And she's pointing her skinny hand right at George's cup. It looked very much like tea.
Ho, ho!
She cried.
Ha ha! So that's your little game, is it? You look after yourself, all right, don't you? You make quite sure you've got a nice cup of morning tea, but you didn't think to bring one to your poor old Grandma. I always knew you were a selfish boy.
No, Grandma, George said. This isn't...
Don't lie to me, boy.
The enormous old hag shouted.
Pass it up here this minute.
No!
Cried Mrs. Cranky.
No, Mother, don't. That's not for you.
Now you're against me too!
Shouted Grandma.
My own daughter trying to stop me having my breakfast, trying to starve me out.
Mr. Cranky looked up at the horrid old woman and he smiled sweetly.
Of course it's for you, Grandma.
He said.
You take it and drink it while it's nice and hot.
Don't think I won't.
Grandma said, bending down from her great height and reaching out a huge horny hand for the cup.
Hand it over, George.
No, Grandma, George cried out, pulling the cup away. You mustn't. You're not to have it.
Give it to me, boy.
Yelled Grandma.
Don't!
cried Mrs. Cranky.
That's George's marvelous.
Everything's George's round here.
Shouted Grandma.
George's this, George's that. I'm fed up with it.
She snatched the cup out of little George's hand and carried it high up out of reach.
Drink it up, Grandma.
Mr. Cranky said, grinning hugely.
Lovely tea. No!
The other two cried.
No, no, no!
But it was too late. The
ancient beanpole.
The ancient beanpole had already put the cup to her lips, and in one gulp, she swallowed everything that was in it. Evil, evil Grandma is putting this thing into her long mouth that looks like a snout at this point.
You can see what's gonna happen in the next picture.
She's groping her hand here. Don't let them
See?
Don't make them notice. She's groping her hand here.
Ow.
Grope, grope.
Mother!
Wailed Mrs. Cranky.
You've just drunk 50 doses of George's marvelous medicine number 4, and look what one tiny spoonful did to that little old brown hen.
But Grandma didn't hear her. Great clouds of steam were already pouring out of her mouth, and she was beginning to whistle. Wait, out of her mouth?
This is gonna be interesting.
Mr. Cranky said, still grinning. Ha
Look at her,
She
she's
is
so tall.
steaming.
I feel like someone could easily break her in half because she's so thin. Pencil thin. Now you've done it!
cried Mrs. Cranky, glaring at her husband.
You've cooked the old girl's goose.
And the old girls.
I didn't do anything.
Mr. Cranky said,
Oh, yes, you did. You told her to drink it.
a tremendous hissing sound was coming from above their heads. Steam was shooting out of Grandma's mouth and nose and ears and whistling as it came.
She'll feel better after she's let off a bit of steam.
Mr. Cranky said.
She's going to blow up.
Mrs. Cranky wailed.
Her boiler's going to burst. Stand clear.
Mr. Cranky said. George was quite alarmed. He stood up and ran back a few paces. The jets of white steam kept squirting out of the skinny old hag's head, and the whistling was so high and shrill it hurt the ears. Ouch! Ouch! I never heard anything that I could describe that high pitch.
They can't even hear it.
Oh!
Call the fire brigade.
cried Mrs. Cranky.
Call the police. Man the hose pipes. Too late.
Said Mr. Cranky, looking pleased.
Grandma!
Shrieked Mrs. Cranky.
Mother! Run to the drinking trough and put your head under the water.
But even as she spoke, the whistling suddenly stopped and the steam disappeared. That was when Grandma began to get smaller. Oh, she became taller and now she's becoming smaller. She had started off with her head as high as the roof of the house, but now she was coming down fast.
What's this, George?
Mr. Cranky shouted, hopping around the yard and flapping his arms.
Now he's being a brown hen.
Lol. Grandma is... See, you can already tell she stopped whistling and there's less steam than you would imagine.
And
What's
she's
up with her
shrinking.
nails?
Oh, she did them.
Really?
Yes. Watch what happens when someone's had 50 spoonsful instead of 1.
Very soon, Grandma was back to normal height.
Stop!
Cried Mrs. Cranky,
That's just right.
but she didn't stop. Smaller and smaller as she got. Down and down she went. In another half minute, she was no bigger than a bottle of lemonade. This is Grandma at her normal size. Wow, she's actually taller than I thought compared to her. And she's calling her to stop. Hey, I thought the steaming stopped. What's up with this? And then she turns into a little kid who looks like a raisin in jumpers.
She looks like she's wearing footy pajamas.
Yes,
And
jumpers.
she did an accident on the rug.
And she's staring at her like, no.
How do you feel, Mother?
Asked Mrs. Cranky anxiously. Grandma's tiny face you bore. And the same foul and furious expression it had always had. Her eyes, no bigger now than little keyholes, were blazing with anger.
How do I feel?
She yelled.
How do you think I feel? How would you feel if you'd been a glorious giant a minute ago and suddenly a miserable midget?
She's still going!
Shouted Mr. Cranky gleefully.
She's still getting smaller!
And by golly, she was.
She's about the size of the brown hen.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I bet she's gonna be smaller than me. She has to. I want to be her rideable pet. He's grinning. He's confused. She's calling for help, and you can't see Grandma's expression here.
But you can imagine it.
When she was no bigger than a cigarette, Mrs. Cranky made a grab for her. She held her in her hands and cried.
How do I stop her getting smaller still? You can't,
Said Mr. Cranky.
She's had 50 times the right amount. I must stop her!
Oh man, I feel bad for her. Mrs. Cranky wailed.
I can hardly see her as it is. Catch hold of each end and pull.
Mr. Cranky said. By then, Grandma was the size of a matchstick and still shrinking fast.
Look at her.
This is Grandma. You know, when I first was snooping into the book, looking at the pictures, when I saw this and read a bit of this, I noticed that Grandma was shrinking. But then I thought this was Grandma's hand, except I don't think I actually thought she was shrinking. I thought she was getting younger, because as you can see, the details just go away. So I think, yeah, Grandma's just getting younger. But this is actually Grandma. A moment later, she was no bigger than a pin, then a pumpkin seed.
Oh, so sad. She disappeared. Where is she?
Cried Mrs. Cranky.
I've lost her. Hooray.
Said Mr. Cranky.
She's gone. She's disappeared completely.
Cried Mrs. Cranky.
That's what happens to you if you're grumpy and bad-tempered.
Said Mr. Cranky.
Great medicine of yours, George.
George didn't know what to think. For a few minutes, Mrs. Cranky kept wandering around with a puzzled look on her face, saying,
Mother, where are you? Where have you gone? This is her complaining.
Mom, my mommy! Hey, why are you crying? I just lost my mommy! My mommy! I couldn't just step on her! My mommy disappeared! You're lucky my mommy disappeared!
Where have you got to? How can I find you?
But she calmed down quite quickly, and by lunchtime she was saying,
Ah, well, I suppose it's all for the best, really. She was a bit of a nuisance around the house, wasn't she?
She said that to her mom.
Yes,
Mr. Cranky said.
she most certainly was.
George didn't say a word. He felt quite trembly. He knew something tremendous had taken place that morning. For a few brief moments, he had touched with the very tips of his fingers the edge of a magic world.
Oh, he made a new friend.
Yeah.
How cute.
More like he's complaining. She's complaining.
Oh, look, his mom's a ghost now.
Let's find out how carefully you are reading.
This is a short quiz that consists of 5 questions.
1. What is the first thing George puts into his medicine?
5 seconds to answer.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The answer is
Golden Gloss hair shampoo.
number 2. What color does the medicine need to be?
1, 2,
3, 4,
5.
The answer is
Brown.
3. What happens when Grandma drinks George's medicine? 5
1,
seconds.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Time's up. The answer is
She jumps off a chair.
number 4. After his grandma, what animal does George feed his medicine to?
5 seconds.
5, 4,
3,
2,
2.
1.
The answer is
A hen.
yes, because they always use chickens. Yes. Number 5, the last question, which is pretty easy. What's the name of George's father? 5 seconds.
1. Can we give them 3
2,
seconds? Because this is an easy
3,
one.
2, 1, go.
The answer is
Mr. Frilly, Killy Cranky.
this is so obvious because we keep on saying Mr. Killy Cranky, but I might say Mr. Killy Cranky Doodle Donkey.
Which got no.
But this just sounds so fake. A and C. Mr. Frilly Frankie. Mr. Really Ranky.
Ranky, top rank. Cranky, cranky.
Pew, pew, pew. How did you like the episode? If you want to answer the questions, here's how you can do it. You can just go to the comments below, and then you can type your answers for the question. See how you were paying attention. So we're still thinking about which book to read next. So until then,
See you next time.
bye! What's your favorite part of the book? Write down in the comments. But here's unrevealed character number 1's favorite part and her least favorite part.
Oh, my favorite part was all the parts with Grandma. Except maybe for the start when she started talking about disgusting stuff. And my least favorite part was the part where they had to remake the medicines a billions of times.
Yeah, that was quite boring, honestly. And who's your favorite character in this book? That's the last question.
Well, this one's easy. It's Grandma. I'm just kidding. It's that little brown hen that shrank.
Sadly. Now, unrevealed character number 2. What's your opinion? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? And who's your favorite character?
My favorite part was Mr. and Mrs. Cranky's reaction when they saw Grandma poking out.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And my least favorite part, let me think. I guess my least favorite part would be the ending where she shrinks and gets gone forever. I kind of like Grandma.
My favorite, least favorite, and favorite. Wait, you didn't say your favorite character.
Right. I guess I would like George.
Okay.
He's the main character anyway.
My favorite part was. Well, my favorite part was kind of what happened to Grandma when she first drinks the medicine. You know, when she just goes, "Owie!" and jumps off a chair in the same sitting position.
That's my favorite part, too.
What did you say? Peck. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and my least favorite part, I think I'm gonna go with unrevealed character number 2. I don't like Grandma though. She's very, very how do I say this?
Annoying.
Exactly.
And whiny.
But I just pitied, basically, Grandma, her daughter, Mrs. Cranky, because of her sad reaction when her mom just disappears. And my imitation was pretty great, right? I love my mommy!
Well, I like the land of shrinked people. You get lots of sticks of celery with little bugs inside it.